Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined today by BadgerBlitz.com publisher John McNamara. Good to see you as always. Football is less than 6 days away.
Yeah, the team that we've been talking about for 9 months, we're almost getting a chance to see them play. So it felt like a long time coming. I know that fans are excited, and I think people that cover the team are excited too to see what it looks like, and just because there's been so much discussion, for, like I said, for almost 9 months now about what this group's going to look like, and we got the depth chart today, and we seem like we're inching closer and closer.
Yeah, we absolutely are. The depth chart that you just mentioned did come out a little bit earlier today. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's Wisconsin football, but the most exciting position to talk about is the wide receivers. To me, one of the things that stood out was seeing Keontez Lewis, a guy we haven't heard a ton about through fall camp in the two deep. What stood out to you, John?
Yeah, maybe the first thing that stands out is Bryson Green ahead of CJ Williams. But then if you go back to fall camp, that certainly makes sense with the way that Bryson Green has performed. We didn't get a chance to see him in the spring, but obviously he had a very good fall camp. So I think that's more of an indication of Green's strengths and what he brings to the table, as opposed to anything that Williams did or did not do in the fall. It's just a position that has quite a bit of depth there. And then, you go and look, and they made it a point to put Vinny Anthony on the depth chart too. And I think that speaks to what, the staff thinks about him, as that third slot guy, obviously behind Will Pauling, who many expect to have a very big season. Skylar Bell is a proven receiver. So, for him to crack that group is maybe the seventh guy, I think kind of speaks to, the skill set that he has. And like we talked about last week, just how much Phil Longo likes those slot guys. So, if we could see him potentially getting some reps, I don't know. I don't know how much further you can go beyond six guys, but if there is a seventh, at least for week one, it appears to be Vinny Anthony.
So yeah, that was also definitely a surprise there in the receiver room. I can't say I'm super shocked. I wasn't shocked about Bryson Green myself, just because of everything we heard out of fall camp and how he was the strongest guy at the catch point and stuff like that. You add in his, he's a veteran player. He saw a lot of action last year at Oklahoma State. I think that makes a lot of sense to see him as one of the starters. And to the surprise of no one, Will Pauling is there. Along the offensive line without Jake Renfro, it's pretty much what we expected to see. And but I would say besides that, I'd say the wide receiver is definitely the spot that is most interesting. But anything else stand out to you on the defensive side of the ball? I think maybe TJ Bowler's not seeing there after he seemed to have a pretty good camp. Seeing Caden Johnson in there, but Caden's been up there and mentioned a lot as well. On the defensive side of the ball, John, what stands out to you?
Yeah, for sure that, and this is not, new information or breaking information, but, Jake Chaney's mentioned as, kind of a, I would say, co-starter there, maybe along with Jordan Turner. Obviously a guy that, they think is going to play quite a bit for them. And that was going back into the spring where, Mike Tressel basically said that he was a starter. And, Chaney was one of the guys mentioned in the recent video that Wisconsin released in terms of getting to put your name on a whiteboard. I wasn't totally dialed in when I was watching that. I don't know exactly what the significance was, but I would imagine it was for putting together some good practices or, a good fall in general, because that was pretty good company he was up there with. So, him being in there as well. Kamoy Latu ahead of Travion Blaylock. There's no or designation there, but you expect all three of those safeties to play. Owen Arnett in the slot. He was a guy, though, that, a lot of media talked about is, hey, there's injuries there, and Owen Arnett's a second guy. So I wouldn't say that was a surprise, but certainly not someone you penciled in there, prior to the start of fall camp. And then, man, I would just kick it back to the offense real quick and say that, Ashcraft being in there at tight end, there's not a whole lot of bodies there, but I think it's still significant that, a true freshman who Wisconsin added pretty late in the process there. He took his official visit in December and then committed to Wisconsin as a guy that now finds himself in the two deep behind Hayden Rucci at tight end. I think there's a lot to like there with him, but, to contribute as a true freshman, it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do.
Yeah, and it's exciting for the upside, especially. I never understood why Colorado pulled his scholarship. I thought if you watch the film once, you like that kid is definitely a high level Power 5 player, especially with the frame and how dominant he was in the state of Washington. I guess the other thing that stood out to me, I should say, was no Isaiah Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't know if he's dealing with an injury issue or anything like that, but we also finally see Ben Barton on the 2 deep, I think for the first time in his career. So
Yeah.
kudos to him for you know, powering through what's been, you know, an up and down career so far. But you know, hopefully he can contribute right away and do so because it's going to be fascinating to see how these guys compete in the 3-3-5.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a wild time. I can't remember this much excitement around the Wisconsin program. And at the same time, I was talking with another friend just this weekend about it's kind of crazy that basically the Badgers class for 2024 is already locked up. Like
Yeah.
there might be one addition, you know, there might be a flip here or there, but I can't remember a time going into a fall where it's like, yep, class, and it's that like almost every of the top 20 class in the country has more than 20 commits already. So it seems like 2024 seems to me at least to be a point where, okay, guys are like completely locked in before their senior years, almost no matter what. It's very few guys are out there and don't have, you know, a commitment yet.
Yeah. And the transfer portal has to do with that too. I mean, among a lot of other things, but you have to secure your spot in these classes. If you go beyond June after those officials, it gets kind of murky for you right now. The elite athletes in the country, they're going to have those spots regardless. But if you feel very good about a school, it's dangerous, I would say, to go into July and August uncommitted if you have a place in mind that you want to eventually commit to. Because those scholarships are even more valuable with how the landscape of college football is. So yeah, like you talked about, Matt, like the bulk of these recruiting classes, except if you're Northwestern, or I think Michigan State's still working hard too, are pretty well set. And that's not to say that they're completely done. Recruiting, there's always a surprise that happens, but Wisconsin's at 21 right now. Could they go to 22? There's potential at safety. I think there's still a need at defensive line. So they're certainly not going to turn down a defensive lineman that checks off their boxes. But yeah, like you said, Matt, the bulk of this class is pretty much wrapped up. Now the goal is to hang on to those guys and then start working on 2025 and beyond once game day visits kind of open up here.
Well, speaking of those 2025s, we're having more and more guys sign up basically to come to the week 1 game. I think the biggest recent addition is confirming Owen Strebig, who is still, one of the top targets on Wisconsin's board. You dropped, I won't say an article, but a link to some message board nuggets, I should say is the better word to say in the Badgers Den today about some more additions to as to who's coming. So you got to be signed up over on BadgerBlitz.com to see all that information. We will say that Strebig is going to be there, which is exciting and important for this class. Because Strebig, even though it sounds like, Notre Dame is obviously another program that's very interested with him. Same with Flanagan, the tight end from Green Bay. They're going to continue to recruit these guys hard through the fall.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you talked about, man, right now I have a future cast in for Notre Dame, and Owen has not come out himself and said this is my top group or this is my leader, but I mean just talking to people, that's something I feel pretty good about right now. But for just a junior in high school, stuff can change there. Talked to him about 2 weeks ago, just talking about visits and stuff. He said, I will for sure be out at Notre Dame. I can't remember what game he said, maybe when they play Michigan. Does that sound right? I hope that sounds right. And then he said USC, he's going to for sure get out to when USC plays UCLA. And he said, I'm going to get to Wisconsin as well. I think it's a good sign for the Badgers that they get him right away for week 1 against Buffalo. And, obviously he's a big target there for the Badgers, the top in-state kid in the class. He might turn out to be the top tackle in the country. And I think that's certainly on the table for the 2025 class. So, we'll see what happens there. He's been to Wisconsin a handful of times. But just, I think recruiting fans should know that this is a guy that Wisconsin's absolutely going after still and has kind of been full throttle since day one. Obviously, at Catholic Memorial, they've had some guys there, Donovan Harbor and Corey Smith, who are going to Penn State. But Owen Strebick is still someone they are absolutely going to pursue pretty heavily, and I'm going to continue to pursue him on Thursday when I go out to see him play. I think they play with Milwaukee Lutheran, so I'll be out to see him play for the first time this fall.
Yeah, I think it's that it's the Notre Dame Ohio State game is the one.
That's it. Yeah, that's right.
I know that Notre Dame is bringing in a lot of recruits for that weekend, much like Wisconsin is bringing a lot of recruits for their Ohio State games. So,
yeah.
But you mentioned going to see Catholic Memorial this coming Thursday, and I think a lot of people, if you're not really in the nitty gritty of Wisconsin high school football, which I will be the first person to say I am not deep in it, Catholic Memorial losing 35-0 to Marquette over the weekend definitely opened up some eyeballs, especially when you think about, the top talent in the state has been coming from there, like those guys you mentioned going to Penn State and Streebig. So that obviously something that stands out over the weekend. What do you think about sort of how things are going there? And then I want to talk to you more about some of the other stuff you saw over the weekend in Wisconsin high school football.
Yeah, so I went to Kenosha for a 5:30 kick to see Tre Poteat, and then I got in my car around. I just got done talking to Trey, and I got there around like 8:30ish. Just kind of scrolling through on my car, and Catholic Memorial, if you're in the Milwaukee area, has 94.5. I think all their games are on the radio there. I was kind of listening. I was like, oh, it's a good game. Marquette. I kind of remember that they played. And then it was, Marquette punched one in, and they said, 35-0, Marquette over Catholic Memorial. And I was, shocked because, this is very much one of the best teams in the state, if not the best team in the state over the last handful of years. Obviously Catholic Memorial lost week 1 against Franklin, but Franklin's a very good team. And I don't want to take anything away from Marquette. I'm assuming that Marquette is, has some dudes on their team this year as well. I don't think Corey Smith played in the game. I didn't do a lot of digging, but from what I was told, he's a little banged up. I think he's got a shoulder, but I don't want to report anything that I don't know. But I from what I gathered, he didn't play in that game. I was looking for some stats, and I don't believe he played. Obviously, the running back headed to Penn State, but yeah, that was a shocker. And I tweeted it out, and I got a lot of traction. And I didn't mean the tweet to be a shot at anyone because it kind of took off that way. There were some oops messages in my replies and stuff like that. I put it out there because I thought it was newsworthy because of the success that Catholic Memorial has had just recently, and then obviously for the entirety of kind of Bill Young's career there. So that was a shocker score, and it's going to be interesting to see how Memorial rebounds in week 3 here.
Well, you mentioned that you were seeing Tre Poteat in Verona. What stood out to you about Poteat watching him in person?
Yeah, he's an excellent athlete. He projects to cornerback. I think that some schools are looking at him as an athlete, and then once you watch him run some routes, and I would say more so catch the football, receiver is obviously something he excels in as well. And then if you go even deeper, you go to the special teams. Not only is he a guy in the return game, if he fields it clean, he's a threat to take it to the house every single time. And I don't think that's hyperbole, but yeah, he was also Verona's gunner, and he made a big tackle from that spot on one play, and then he helped down the ball inside the 5-yard line on another play. So, just a guy that is an excellent athlete and then can impact the game in so many different ways. When he played wide receiver, I thought it was, roughly 20-25% of the time. They lined him out wide, and he's kind of working along the sideline. If you want to get creative with him and in games that are a little bit more, competitive, Verona, I think, went 45 unanswered against Kenosha Indian Trail. But, if you can put him in the slot, I'd love to see what he could do in a jet sweep, put him at tailback. He's just kind of one of those gadget guys where he's going to have success, wherever you put him. You just try to get the ball in his hands. I'm sure the head coach at Verona has thought about all those things. So I'm not giving him any ideas right now. I just think that he's a guy that's absolutely a weapon in all 3 facets of the football game.
Yeah, I think there are a couple other, just looking from the tape that you posted, that gunner tackle was one that really stood out to me. That was like the eye-opening was like, oh, okay, that's a little bit different. That was a fantastic play. So, elsewhere in the state, looks like there were some pretty good matches, including quasi rock fight between Muskego and Oak Creek. But I think, what are you looking forward to this coming weekend? Are you going to another game?
I got
Besides the
Strebig.
Catholic Memorial.
Yeah, Strebig lined up on Thursday, and then I still have Cooper Catalano on my list. I will for sure get a chance to see him in the next couple weeks. Still want to get up to Green Bay to see Landon Gauthier, and then now I'm looking at those toll charges to get down to Illinois because there's a handful of Illinois guys to see. They're a little further down there than I'd like them to be, but those guys are definitely on my list. But so we'll see what Friday is. Friday might be an Illinois day, or it might be a stay-home night day. We'll see. Maybe depends on what my wife says. We'll see. She might want me to go to Illinois, to be honest with you. So it might be a double header for me. That
our friend Jake was down in Illinois this past weekend. I know. So Jake and Clint together were down at Illinois. So that was it was nice to see them together. And it's always nice to see you, John. So we're gonna wrap it up there today on Badger Blitz TV. We'll be back again later this week talking more Badgers and more recruiting. Until then, make sure you're over on BadgerBlitz.com all the time in the Badgers Den. Sign up because it's where the best information anywhere in the Badgerverse is. So until next time, he's John McNamara and I'm Matt Perkins, and we'll see you in the den.